Hi, and welcome back to this Thursday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Joe Manchin, he's a Democrat senator. He is now out there backing a one-year delay of the Obamacare individual mandate. So that represents a change. He says he would support the House Republican plan to impose a one-year delay of the individual mandate as part of the budget negotiations. He realizes the harm it's going to do to the American people. So it's not exactly the exact House bill he's supporting, but the concept that he is supporting. And it's going to turn out that we may have to get back on the phones to Republicans in the House. Remember, they voted unanimously to defund Obamacare because they heard from us. I think they're going to have to hear from us again. So the focus right now is on the Senate. We got to melt the phone lines into the Senate on this deal. But I think we're going to have to cycle back to the House because they are already running up the white flag on defunding Obamacare. The Senate hasn't even taken up this issue, and they're already, the surrender caucus is now in full throat over in the House. Here's a piece from the National Journal. Conservative Republicans in the House appear ready to back off their demands that the short-term funding resolution Congress must pass to avoid a government shutdown also defund or delay Obamacare. So they won, and now they're going to quit. This is amazing to me. This is amazing to me. You talk about lawmakers that are not listening to the American people. It is the Republican leadership in the House. The only reason they voted to defund Obamacare is that their constituents, that's you and me, said you vote for this thing or else. And I don't know what it takes to get through to these guys because now they're already running up the white flag of surrender, and this thing hasn't even been voted on in the Senate. I mean, it just boggles the mind that these are the people that we have leading the Republican Party in a shift that could spare John Boehner a damaging uprising from his majority's right wing. Conservatives, so conservatives are the ones that are going weak in the knees here. Conservatives have begun to acknowledge their lack of leverage in the funding debate. This is, you talk about grinding my gears. Lack of leverage in the funding debate. There's not a penny that can be spent to implement Obamacare unless the House funds it. Every appropriations bill has got to start in the House. No money can be appropriated from the Treasury except by law. So if the House doesn't fund implementation of Obamacare, it's stopped in its tracks. What do you mean, lack of leverage? These guys do not even understand the Constitution that they took an oath to uphold. They are now coalescing around the House Speaker's preferred strategy of forcing the White House to accept health care law changes by holding the debt ceiling hostage. So now these guys are going to abandon the fight, and they're going to pick it up when the debt ceiling comes around in 2 weeks. So they're going to say, oh, no. We're not surrendering. We're not folding. We're just going to transfer the fight to the debt ceiling showdown. Well, let me ask you this question. If they're not going to stand up for defunding Obamacare now, why would we think they would do it then? What reason do they give us to think that they're going to stand tall and strong then when they're folding like a cheap suit right now? None that I can think of. So the battle, ladies and gentlemen, is now. We do not need to postpone this battle, this conflict, this decision until the debt ceiling. So again, it looks like we're going to have to be calling our representatives and injecting some titanium into their spines by calling them on the phone. So that's what is going on. The Republicans already, it just boggles the mind. Already, House conservatives even are in retreat on this deal. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Marilyn in College Station, Texas. Marilyn, do I need to bring her in? There we go. Marilyn, College Station, Texas. Welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian. I had just called. I had to call several different offices. Either they put you on hold, nobody answered. This is for John Cornyn. And when I finally got the Austin office, they told me that, well, sure, they'll pass that along, that we wanted no disclosure, but he had a better plan. And, did I understand that if the government was shut down, 85% of Obamacare would still be funded? So it's kind of stupid for me to say no disclosure.
Yeah. Well, and all you can do is pass along your wish as a constituent. What they do with that And see, he's wrong about that. He's wrong about that.
It was a girl, and she said, well, you seem like a reasonable person, and he has a CR out there right now, and he's not opposing Senator Cruz. He just has a different approach.
Right, I know. They're just kind of monkeying with all of us. And so I appreciate the call, Marilyn. Well, thank you for calling, and I'm afraid that you're going to get a lot of that. Do not let them lie to you about this. You know, the reality is Senator Cornyn doesn't understand the Constitution either, because the Constitution is very clear that every appropriations bill has got to start in the House, and no money can be drawn from the Treasury except in accordance with what the House does. That means that if the House doesn't authorize it, it cannot be spent. That 85% thing, that can be stopped anytime. Anytime that the Congress can stop that. They have the constitutional authority to stop that anytime they choose. They could. That's why they've been able to change the disbursement formula for Social Security. They've done that dozens of times. That's why they were able to add the Medicare Part D back in 2003 under Bush. That's why they could change the Medicare disbursement. That's why they do it every time. Part of the Medicare law requires that reimbursements to doctors be lowered every year. They don't do it. They just waive that every year. So they can do that. They have the authority to change the funding formulas for every mandatory program in D.C. So they're just lying to us because they want cover to be able to surrender on the cloture vote. All right, Marilyn, listen, thanks. That's all we can do. Don't worry about not being able to out-argue these people. You let them know you're watching the vote, and that as far as you're concerned, a vote for cloture is a vote for Obamacare. Let's go to Dave, Rogers, Arkansas. Dave, welcome. What's on your mind? Dave, are you there?
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
Brian. Good to talk to you today.
Thank you for calling.
I just wanted to relay some stuff I'd heard last night on that secular TV I got in my living room that I'm about to throw out the door one of these days. But anyway, there's a gal on there, and she come on, Brian, and she was talking about the payments that we'll be making on these Obamacare plans. And she gave a couple good scenarios, and one of them was $50,000 and one of them was $25,000. Now, here's the problem I had with it all. They said something about these subsidies. So if you make X amount of dollars, $50,000, your payment's going to be $350 a month. But then the next thing, and it was kind of funny, Brian, because she kind of choked up a little bit. I could see her old windpipe was yelling like she had to swallow something. But the next thing, she said there was a $6,800 copay, and then the insurance after that only paid 60%. So
Yes.
That doesn't sound like no winner to me, Brian.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're exactly right. And one of the things that they are not telling you is, in fact, I've got a piece here from Politico, very perceptive, Dave. I appreciate the call. And just to confirm what Dave just said, here's a piece from Daily Caller. Obamacare hides the switch of subsidies from young to the old. A new analysis of Obamacare prices says the much-touted taxpayer subsidies for young people are smaller than promised, but they're not telling people that. The missing subsidies will jack up costs for young, healthy people who are single and childless. In other words, they want more money from young people. They know they've got a problem with older people. They got to fleece the young people, the millennials, these gaga 18 to 29-year-olds who think Obama walks on water. They're going to take them to the cleaners. And this, let's see, officials are choosing to steer the promised subsidies to older people. The new gap between reality and President Barack Obama's promises were discovered during a review of pricing data at 15 government-run exchanges where health companies are allowed to offer government-mandated taxpayer-subsidized insurance to buyers. Here's the quote. This is a study from the National Center for Public Policy Research. In 11 of 15 Obamacare exchanges, the taxpayer subsidies disappeared for people aged 18 to 34 even before the $35,000 threshold was reached, which is way below the promised threshold, which is $46,000. And the subsidies just disappear off of the exchanges. The government released data on 36 federal exchanges, and in 23 of them, the subsidies disappear before 300% of the family poverty level for people aged 18 to 34. Now, they're out there telling people you're going to get subsidies if your income is up to 400% of the poverty level, which would be $46,000. But now they're taking them away at $35,000, and they're simply not telling people. So this is going to affect 1.3 million young people. They're going to lose that promised subsidy. It is gone. All right, then I got one more story on that, but let's grab a phone call before the break. Let's go to Randall, Jeffersonville, Georgia. Randall, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. Hope you're having a good day.
I am.
I wanted to call you and tell you that I listen to 88.9 on my station, but I was going to tell you when Tim Wildman comes on, and then especially when you come on, we get these. You can listen to rock or country all the time. You don't hear it, but we get these like emergency broadcasting alerts, and they'll tell about like Georgia. They'll tell about South Carolina. They'll go all over the states about the test.
Mm-hmm.
The thing, and it just messes. It's just you can just tell. It's I don't know. I guess the FCC doing that.
Well, and I appreciate your call, and we get these complaints all the time, Randall, about these emergency alerts breaking into the broadcast at the most inconvenient times. And I checked with our director of operations yesterday, Jim Stanley, and basically what Jim has said, there isn't anything that we can do. This is coming from the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. Those have to be run whenever the FCC says they have to be run. Now, my understanding is that these alerts are supposed to be local. In other words, if you're living in Georgia, you should not be getting weather alert broadcasts for Alabama or for Florida or South Carolina. So if that's happening, maybe that's something that we can look into, because if somebody's getting an alert, a weather alert in South Carolina, and it airs in Georgia, there's obviously no reason for that to happen. So anyway, I sympathize with the problem. I wish there was a way we could just fix it, make it go away. Understand what you're saying. Doesn't happen on other stations. Just seems to happen on AFR Talk. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back after the news.